You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast, where we challenge the status quo of the food industry, celebrate good food founders who are building businesses on their own terms, introduce industry disruptors, and are redefining equitability. If you're ready to build your financial confidence and join the good food revolution to change the way the food industry does business, you are in the right place. I'm the Good Food CFO and your host, Sarah Delavan. Hey, Chelsea, I have an article that I wanted to talk to you about today.
What is it about this week?
Well, it's in the vein of equitability, right? And redefining equitability in the food industry. There was an article, it actually came out in August of 2022 on Civil Eats, which is an amazing journalistic website for anybody who's not familiar. I'm kind of excited to talk about this. It's a little bit different than what we typically talk about because it focuses on a anti-capitalist cafe. So the cafe is called Cafe Euphoria. It's located in Troy, New York. It was founded during the pandemic, and they're really trying to create a new type of cafe in a lot of different ways. And I thought it would be really cool to kind of talk about what they're doing and how they're approaching this anti-capitalist, business, just as a way of maybe inspiring other people to think about things differently.
Yeah, I love that. I want to hear more.
So the cafe was founded actually by a former professor. They've since retired from their role as professor. And a few other individuals that founded the business with 15 rules or principles that define their cafe. So I'll share a couple of them with you from their website. One of the things that sets it apart is that they have equal wages for all team members, which I think is interesting and unique. And I want to dive into that a little bit. They also founded the cafe as a safe place or a safer space where bias would not be tolerated. So many of the founding members are transgender or gender non-conforming individuals. And so it was really important for them to create a safe workspace and also working space for their guests. The other really cool thing about this cafe is that from the customer perspective, the food, drink, and they have like a little clothing section. It's all available to the public on a sliding scale. So you self-declare based on how much you earn, how much you can afford to pay. So there's sort of a suggested scale. Like if you earn X number of dollars, you'd be on the lowest pay level, right? Up to the highest pay level. And you don't have to explain. It's just there as like a guideline. And then you pay what is appropriate for you. And interestingly, the article points out that most people pay at the highest level.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
Yeah.
But I was curious about that.
Yeah. So it just the article is great. I recommend people, read it in full. And we'll obviously link to it in the show notes. But I just thought it was a really interesting example and seemingly successful. They are still in business today. They offer, I think it's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the sliding scale. They have events there. They obviously offer, coffee and other beverages in their cafe. But one of the things I really wanted to dig into was this idea of paying an equal wage to all employees. Now, the starting wage is $18, and a portion of that was paid in actual, hourly wage, payment. And then a small portion was paid in equity, essentially. So not only is it equal hourly rate for all employees, but you're also getting an ownership of the business, which I think is a really cool thing in and of itself, that this business is doing. And they talk about in the article how their goal is to achieve break even. They have no outside investors. So with operating funds, their goal is to break even. And then when they do and then become profitable, they'll continue to increase the hourly wage until it hits $32 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I think, 32 sounds like a lot of money, $32 an hour. Or I think maybe it did sound like a lot of money at one point in our lives, but when we really look at the cost of living in 2023 going into 2024, that to me like is a livable wage.
Mhm. This idea of paying everyone on the team the same rate, I think is a very interesting concept that I love to explore in food businesses. It's something, I've explored in our, consulting business as well, right? And the Good Food CFO. And I think digging into it, there are a lot of founders that don't pay themselves like for one or several years, right, as they're starting up a business. And so it's interesting. And Emily and I talk about that in today's episode. But, you know, the importance of paying yourself and this idea of paying yourself the same rate that you're paying your team. Now, in this article, it points out that the founder of the cafe, the former professor, they pay themselves in equity only.
Mm,
And it was important for them to ensure that they could pay their entire team that same wage, right, in actual dollars. And then once they're able to, they would also be, paid in dollars and not just in equity as well. They felt like they were in a privileged position having had a good career and to have a savings. And so that is a decision that they made too. But I like to encourage a lot of founders to at least pay yourself the minimum wage physically, like in the state that you're in, or to pay yourself the same wage that you're paying your employees. I actually really love that model. I think in the food industry specifically, and I'm sure you have insights into this, Chelsea, from your background at Starbucks, there are positions that are just deemed less valuable. One that always gets called out is the dishwasher.
mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, I hear a lot of people say all the time, like, I don't want to pay X dollars an hour to you to wash the dishes. Like, we have a dishwasher for that. Right. But it's like, but the kitchen doesn't function if the dishes aren't clean. You know what I mean? And I think it's sort of a radical idea to pay everyone on the team the same wage. And I wonder how that plays into what all of the roles are and how, like, you know what I mean, what positions people have in the kitchen. I mean, it didn't really
Yeah,
go into that in the article, but it's an interesting thing to think about.
it is interesting, and it kind of harkens back to, or it makes me think of, you know, not financially, but as a leader in a food business, in a retail business, and the other leaders that I worked with that I respected the most were always the ones that said, I'm not going to ask you to do anything, like their employees, right?
Mhm.
Our partners. I would never ask you to do something that I myself would not do.
Right.
Right. And so hearing you say like what positions are people filling, I think that it really does open a space where everybody should be able to do every position,
Mhm.
right? Everybody should be able to do everything. Everybody can run the trash. Everybody can
Right.
mop the floors, right? But at the same time, if everybody knows how to make a sandwich, right, or whatever the what most people would consider like the higher level position, right? That instills another level of confidence in everyone that works there
Yeah. I
because
think
they're able to, you know, not achieve, but like produce
yeah.
at that higher level.
Yeah. I think the pushback that we would get, right, if there was like a third person in this conversation that I can kind of hear in my head is like, there are technical skills that certain people on the team will have to have, right, in order to um, move the business forward, right? An executive chef, someone who's creating the recipes, someone who, like the founder in many cases, right, is the person who is developing a dish or developing a drink, creating that recipe, ensuring that it's profitable, that it has the right margins, teaching the team how to do it, right? So if it's not the founder, maybe an executive chef or a kitchen manager. And I understand the argument 100% that that person should be paid according to the skills that they bring to the kitchen. So I see the ups and the downs of it. And I think at the end of the day, right, it goes back to doing business building a business on your own terms, right?
That's exactly
Yeah,
what I was going to say, right? Is that absolutely, I also agree with you, but I think that if you're going to work, let's say, right at this co-op, that's a decision that you've made for yourself,
right.
right? To say that, yes, I do bring these skills to the table, but this is really what I want to do with my working life. I
Mhm.
want to be in a company that stands for something. These values align with my values. And so I'm accepting, this level of wage. If that's not for you, it's not for you. And that's
Yeah,
okay. There's other businesses that are founded in other ways or have different business plans, right? That will work for you. And
yeah,
that's exactly what we're talking about every day
yeah,
here.
yeah. I'll share a little bit that for a long time, everyone on our team had the same hourly rate. That changed when we decided to bring on like another team member, and we said, okay, that person's going to get a bit of a higher wage than others because they bring a skill that felt very important, and then the idea was that everyone's wage would get lifted, to that point. So I also think that, as our business as an example, it's like you can start in one place and maybe you make an exception, and with good
Mhm.
intention for the future, or maybe you always pay everyone the same wage.
And I will say, like, if we're specifically talking about deciding on wages, right? And as a founder, as someone running a business, like how to make those decisions, I think that the most important thing, no matter what you decide you want to do in terms of a pay rate, is open communication.
Yeah,
Because uh, the fastest way to lose someone's trust, their buy-in, all of those things is to not simply communicate the thoughts that are going on in your head and why you're making decisions the way that you are.
I think the other thing that stood out to me as really interesting in the article, actually, this was in a different article. This is from the Albany Business Review. They also wrote an article about Cafe Euphoria. They pointed out that it is a for profit LLC. So this is not a nonprofit cafe. This is for profit business that is structured like a co op. And the interesting thing they said is that some employees are tasked with advocating for the business's bottom line, while others advocate for the interests of the community that they serve. And business decisions are made by negotiations between the two.
I
And
was so hoping that you were going to talk about this. I was curious, like, again, going back to what we were talking about before, you can want to do all the good in the world and want to have equity, but at the end of the day, what is the health of your business? So I want to hear more about this for sure.
yeah, and there are some businesses. There's a bakery up north, Northern California, that I think is really trying to do this. It's not a co-op, but they have said from day one that we are paying all of our employees a very fair wage, and they also wanted to give back to the community in a variety of different ways. And one of my concerns that I had for them is like, where do you draw the line, right? And how do
Hmm.
you make sure that your business stays financially secure and safe, right? And I think that this idea of having some employees that advocate for the community and some that advocate for the business's bottom line is a great approach to this. I actually love this a lot because you then don't have one person sort of like mulling over trying to protect both sides.
I was just going to say that, trying to please everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what their decision making process is exactly, you know what I mean? But to have someone say, okay, this is what I imagine. They come to their management meetings and they say, okay, here's our margin, our business margin. We're hitting our revenue goals or we're not hitting our revenue goals. We're spending, on target or we're not spending on target, right? And so there's like a financial report of some sort. And then the folks who are advocating for the community say, we want to do more things for the community that's going to cost us this much money. Then the business side can say, we don't have that money, right? We hear you, but, or if things are going well, they can say, yes, that is something that we can do based on the numbers, right?
Or even find the middle ground, right? Like
Mhm.
that's, I think, the negotiation is like, let both sides run wild with their wildest dreams and then say, okay, but what's realistic
Right. Where do we land?
so
Yeah.
that both of us get what we want out of this? And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. I think that's a really cool way to approach the business. I think being able to give people the focus on one piece, right?
Yeah.
And letting them own that. You're going to end up with, like you said, if you're protecting or trying to protect both sides, right? Or you're trying to please everyone, then you're never really going hard
Hmm.
on something.
Right.
Giving them that ownership allows them to do that, to
Yeah.
really push.
So again, this was an article that was posted in Civil Eats, great journalistic website. It was posted in August of 2022. So you can sort of go back to their archives and read more about it. I thought it was a fun and interesting article to bring to today's podcast episode. My conversation with Emily was, gosh, insanely fun. As you'll probably hear in the episode, we've been Instagram friends for years now. We had never had a one-on-one conversation before. And our first time talking face to face was recording this podcast episode. And we were both just absolutely over the moon about it.
And quite frankly, Sarah, you'd never know it. You two like clicked right in, were thick as thieves, and had what I thought was a really great conversation.
I walked away like on cloud nine. Now, and I'm going to let everybody know that the internet and technology was not our friend that day. We had a really problematic internet connection. We spent a good chunk of time in the beginning trying to sort that out. And we had some issues with our microphones connecting to Zoom properly. So we were sort of hoping for the best during the recording. And then after the fact, we realized that, yeah, the sound quality is not going to be what you guys are used to, on my end with the microphone. I think it was like my camera ended up picking up the sound, which like that's not what it's designed for. And you'll also hear, I think through the episode, the sound kind of gets a bit funny here and there where the internet was strained. But
Yeah, some interesting little glitches.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
weird because we didn't sense the glitches in our conversation too much, which was good. But yeah, but they come through in the recording. But gosh, I can't wait to talk to Emily again. I know she's coming to the community to do a live. We share dates
Mhm.
and information on that in the episode. So make sure you listen all the way through to get those details. I'm just excited for everybody to hear it, Chelsea. Shall we get to it?
Let's do it.
Katie Melezova here, your food brand strategist, and I just wanted to remind you about the live Q&A that Sarah and I are hosting tomorrow inside the Good Food CFO community exclusively for Plus members. I can't wait to connect with you and dig into your questions around positioning your brand to stand out in a meaningful way. And if you are listening to this episode after November 7th, you can still catch the replay of our live session. This live Q&A and the replay are available to all Good Food CFO Plus members. With your Plus membership, you'll get access to live Q&As like this one, exclusive bonus content, and even attend live podcast recordings. If you're not a Plus member yet, you can upgrade by visiting thegoodfoodcfo.com/join.
So Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here. I cannot even begin to explain.
I feel the same way. As it's been 7 to 8 years in the making, following one another on Instagram in particular and supporting one another. And it's just such a delight to be here sitting, I'm going to say across the desk from you, even though you're inside a computer screen, it still feels like we're together, which is amazing.
It does feel like we're together. I feel like I know your office, and I've seen your office transform over the years.
Yeah, it has. So that's how long we've been following each other, is that it's been like this for a while, but it has gone through definitely evolutions over the past like 5 or so years, I think. My gosh, so crazy. And
As both of our hair got shorter and shorter, our offices got better and better. become
Yeah,
more
and
ourselves.
yeah, well, getting older, I think, becomes
We are.
territory,
It's wonderful.
thankfully. Well, I mean, in that vein too, our businesses have evolved over time. I
Mm.
mean, I didn't have a podcast when I started following you, and we made our initial connections. And back then I thought, why in the world would I have a podcast? Quite frankly, it was like not even on my radar. And if I remember correctly, when I first came across you were, it was of course pre-pandemic,
Mhm.
and you were, I believe, in actual kitchens, like restaurant
Mm.
kitchens. You were traveling around and
Mhm.
you were helping people really get set up for success from day one in all sorts of ways.
The Kitchen Think was always set up as a restaurant consultancy, where I would go into restaurants, and then it moved into more of a food business consultancy, because I enjoy working with a variety of food businesses. And I would go into kitchens and go into people's businesses and help them either set up from scratch or help them fix the problems that they were currently dealing with operationally or financially, help them come up with solutions and a strategy around that, which I did until 2019, when I fell pregnant. And then in 2020, for reasons, I had all of my projects got cancelled. And I'd always had the plan to take it online in various ways, which I'm now doing, but I didn't know how I was going to work it. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I still wanted to be working with people, and I still wanted to be working with the owners of the businesses, but I wasn't sure how. So I pivoted a little bit after the birth of my first child, my son, and started coaching food business owners, working with them on strategy and working with them on plans and getting them to do the work. One of the issues that I'd had as a consultant is going into businesses, coming up with these beautiful systems and this way of working and these great operating plans, and leaving, and then some manager following in after me and throwing away everything I'd done, and then having to be called in again because none of it was working. You're not using what I gave you.
Yeah.
And it's a frequent problem, and it's completely normal. I think if people came into my business, I would also change what they did. But where I knew that I could have an impact was working with the owners. So I stopped working on the ground and started working one-on-one with owners, and looking at the business, looking how it ran, looking at what the plans were, really approaching it from a strategic perspective and building it up and taking them through that entire process.
Yeah. Isn't it fun to organize things and like
I love it.
make sense of things? Like
I am like Marie Kondo of operations and finances. It's like Lego for me. Looking at a business and somebody comes to me with their problem and or the challenge. It could be, we're trying to grow and we don't know how, or we're trying to grow and we're coming across these issues. And firstly, uncovering how they got to that point, and then going, okay, well, these are the different things we can try, and watching how it all comes together and how it all stacks up.
Yeah. So you still have the kitchen thing, which is a little bit less boots on the ground, if you will, in restaurants and in kitchens, and it has transitioned to the coaching format with founders.
It's transitioned more to strategist format, in that I do have some coaching clients who work with me long term. My focus is, if, say, you're having an issue in your business and you need some solutions around it, or you're about to undertake a big project and you'd like some guidance and some clarity, I'll help you develop that plan. And that still gives me the joy of working one-on-one with people. And it gives me a bit of real life experience of what's happening in the industry. and the challenges people are experiencing, and they never really change, but there might be the odd specific here and there.
Yeah.
And it's stuff I enjoy. I don't do a huge amount of it because I am building my other business at the moment.
That's where I was going to head next. And that's called Food Biz School, right?
That is called Food Biz School. So Food Biz School is, you'll laugh, I think, because I think you and I both have encountered many people over the years who come to your passion projects. And you think, okay, let's go. But Food Biz School is very much my passion project. Amazing. In that it's an idea that I came up with. It's not a groundbreaking idea at all, but I think the execution is slightly different. So what Food Biz School is it's educational digital products for people who have started or want to start food businesses. And the entire premise around it is that you can learn something in an hour, a day, or a week. There's no long-term commitment to needing to learn something. If you have a problem and you want to solve it for yourself, here are the resources that you need to explore that. Yeah. Where it does differ is my sticking point, the thing I hate the most about most business advice out there on the internet is how dry and boring it is and inaccessible.
Emily, I'm kidding.
No, but I'm not with you. I mean, like,
I'm joking.
You get in there and you explain things to people and you help people. But if you Google how to start a restaurant,
yeah,
and look at what comes up, either it's written by someone who did start a restaurant and maybe doesn't understand how their experience can relate to everyone, or it's written by some huge content farm who have jammed it full of keywords.
Yeah.
And it's not actually going to help anyone. It doesn't. So the first thing I will always say is write a business plan, but there's no information on how do you write that business plan beyond how do you lay it out. There are no questions to help you uncover what it is you're trying to achieve. There's no explanation of the fact that what you're actually just doing at the base of it is writing a plan, and it doesn't need to be hugely complicated or sound like a pitch deck, because all it needs to do is make sense in your business so that you know what the next thing is that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So that's Food Biz School. Me is creating a large amount of free material for people because I'm a big believer in give it away, give generously, and things will come back. But there are quite a few, and the rollout will get more and more intense as it goes up. But there are these classes and courses and ebooks that people can engage with at their leisure. There's no huge buy-in. There's no huge time commitment. Say, if you want to learn how to cost a recipe, give me 15 minutes and I'll teach you how to cost a recipe. Yeah. Let me make it simple for you so that you can go and do it. So that's not the block. If you want to, if you're struggling with putting your business on Instagram, come and take the Instagram class.
Yeah.
If you have a food business,
when you were saying that you were in like TV and film or media, and I was like, oh, I bet it comes in handy in today's age when we are doing so much with video and stuff on social, and that probably plays such a big part into your ability to help folks with that.
I think so. I think it's a part that, or like all of my experiences have added together to lead me to this point. All of my friends are in television. all of my best friends, except for the one who owns a really fancy grocery store. But all of my friends are either in photography or television, through editing or being the content or, being the talent, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Something I saw on the website was that it called out, I think I wrote it here, I help food business thrive in their first year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yes, that is so important. And that's actually something that we're talking about on our team as well, looking at, okay, who have we worked with and who have we been in communication with through our work over the last several years. In many cases, financially, it's too far gone, if you will, right? It's your break point by the time someone comes to speak to me, or it's, we're able to turn it around, but it's not like implementing a kitchen organization strategy. When you're changing the financials of a business big picture, I always say it's like turning a big ship around. It's going to take time. And if you don't have that time, that's a problem. And so how do we help people, business idea before they even launch, to think about, what do I want to create, right? Like with the business plan example you gave, what is the vision for this business? What do I want for my life, right? And how do I create those two things simultaneously? And what is my product? And talking about margins, I just think it's like such a critical piece, right? When you understand your cost and you know what you want to price your products at, you understand your margin, which then informs your cash flow. It informs the amount of risk you may have to take in terms of like taking on debt or seeking investment. So it's like we're also really focused on how do we speak to that from a holistic financial standpoint as early as possible. And I think one of the things you and I have always connected on is recipe costing and food costing.
We love it.
It
just makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just lovely
without it, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that when you have a conversation with somebody, say, okay, how much does it cost to make your product? And they either say, I'm not sure. Have you ever had someone say, I'm not sure, but I know it's profitable?
Yes.
You're like,
yes. Or they straight up say, I don't know. How how don't you know? And it's because that's why I love the work that you do. And watching your business transform into what it is has given me a lot of pleasure watching from the outside, because you get into it and you show people how the numbers work and how it make a big difference, how small, it's not a small thing, but it's a tiny piece of the pie of how much does it cost you to make it influences the entire rest of the business.
Yeah. And it's different, right, with a catering company versus a CPG brand versus a restaurant, because there are different factors, different operating costs, right? The structure of the business is different, but you can use the same tools and information to say, okay, I now understand, right? Like this idea of a profitable product. You may have a product that costs $5 to make, and the gross profit on that is $1. It's actually not helpful to you. Right. And going back to what you said about if you Google how to start a business, right? Like the reason this podcast exists is because I believe, and my team believes, that there's not enough media out there that is giving people real information, good information, that is not just here's the way it's done. Get investment, grow fast, get into distribution, right? And like, I don't believe that the generally available information is helping what we call here in the US the good food movement. Clean food, right? Like 4 corporations own the grocery stores here. Like literally, there are a few companies who own the stores. And then the brands within that store, can be rolled up into 4 or 5 businesses. And we don't want to eat that way. But in order for that to change, currently small businesses who are creating cleaner food, good food, right? And have so mission driven, they need to be local, they need to be regional, and they need to be national, and they need to be financially successful. And so we're hoping to be the voice of sort of reason and information, in that regard. And we really started to think of the Good Food CFO as a media company, because first and foremost, it starts with information.
And it's such a beautiful mission. It's, as you say, no one is paying attention to it except for you. And I think we've got this little community of, I think there's 5 of us who all around the world are sort of popping up and thinking, okay, well, what can we do? We all have the same mission at heart, which is to help the producers do what they do best so that they can feed more people in the way that they love. It's a wonderful thing that we get to do every single day. And I get to do it, either through fast-paced digital products or by working hand in hand with these chefs or these people who have plans for a product but have never set foot in a kitchen.
And I think that that's such a big segment of founders, people who have never stepped foot in a kitchen and have big ideas and wonderful products, and being able to come to someone like you and say, okay, let me show you strategically how to structure this. Let me inform you and educate you on that. It just provides such a leg up, and it eliminates such a huge learning curve. And I think working in a kitchen, I think, is one of those things that, like, not everyone is going to be able to figure out on their own.
No. No.
And
there are too many moving parts. I think it's the one. I've worked with a lot of people who have gotten into restaurants or coffee shops or catering companies without any prior experience. I always try to discourage people from, your first food business should not be a restaurant. Please do not open a restaurant as your first food business. Rather start like a meal prepping company, or, just like if you have a passion for baking cakes, start a home-based bakery, something small that you can control before you try to grow it. This is the advice I give to my friends. This is it. I will tell everybody, please don't open a restaurant or a coffee shop as your first food business. You're going to make a huge mistake. You're going to lose a huge amount of money because of that. Kitchens, on paper, seem quite easy to run. They are not. There are a lot of moving parts. The bigger your menu gets, the bigger your wastage gets. Kitchens are going to be your biggest cost center in terms of loss and wastage. Like, there's just, you have to manage people. You can't expect yourself to do it all. There's systems and processes from getting prepped in the morning and your mise en place to actually selling it and getting it out the door. Like when somebody comes to me and they say, I have an idea for a seasonal restaurant and we're going to change the menu according to the day, and my heart sinks and I think, okay, I love your passion, but how can I talk you out of this?
Similarly, I know there are several meal prep businesses, and we call them like food delivery businesses too. I've heard you talk a lot about the breadth of the menu and narrowing the focus is so beneficial. I see a lot with meal prep businesses, there's this urge or this it feels like they need to customize do a lot of customizations for their clients, have
Mhm.
no ingredient repeat 2 times, on the menu. And it's, listen, you can repeat an ingredient, just change the preparation, right? Make it taste like it's
Mhm.
have a different experience. And I'm a huge proponent of like streamlining, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I always say, like, of course the financial person is going to tell you the good, like the reasons to do that, right? But it always sounds good coming from a chef or someone with experience in the kitchen, right? To kind of back me up here a little bit.
I 100% back you up, because it makes it easier to sell. If you are the person to go to for grazing boards, and you do these beautiful cheese grazing boards, and they know that they can come to you and they can get this specific thing, when they think I need a grazing board, they're going to come to you. They're not going to come to the person who does grazing boards and chocolate and donuts and because it doesn't seem like they specialize in anything. There are a lot of options out there. What you want to do, especially when financial times are a bit tough, like people often say and I'm trying to avoid using the word recession, because like I don't think anybody's actually in a recession, but like leading up to that, when things are a bit tougher financially, people think that small businesses fail. They don't. Good small businesses survive. When consumers and customers know that they can get quality from you, that's who they will seek out. They're going to spend their money wisely, and they're going to go to the expert. They're going to go to the person that they know they can get the absolute best experience from. So firstly, from that perspective, like, you want to have a focus. Don't offer everything. Offer the style that you are good at. Put a pretty little marketing spin on it, make it work. Then from the other side, operationally, it just makes sense. Number one, you cannot be the person doing all the cooking. So you can't hold all of the recipes in your head.
I'm like, we got to hold space for this idea for like a second, because there's so many folks who do this. Everything is in their head. Huge,
and they refuse to hire a team, so they can't grow. They keep themselves small. They burn themselves out. They wonder why they're not getting any bookings. They're not getting any bookings, or they're not getting any orders, because they can't market their business, because they're exhausted from having to cook in their business all the time. And then the key is they'll say, I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, I understand, but we now need to try and scale your perfectionism. We need to get a system so that other people can do it. And I always recommend that everybody goes and reads the E-Myth Revisited. I give it to people. Like, here's your book, go and read it.
Yeah. So I think the other thing here is there's also the version of they have all the information in their head and they haven't gotten it down and into an organized system. There's no good way to communicate. So even though they have people who are there to support them, it's not like autonomous. It's the chef still needs to be there all the time. Can you talk a little bit about, like, give us some tough love or some tips on like how to make that transition? And maybe you have some tools that can help.
Well, let's look at what's causing the reason for you to stay there, and what it is it's comfort. So if we look at it from a psychological or a neuroscience perspective, what's happening is you're actively choosing to keep yourself small because you're afraid to grow. You're afraid that when you grow, you're not going to be able to have the same level of control over your business. It's a very scary moment. Growth is very scary for everyone. All right. And it's not you, it's your brain. Your brain wants you to stay where you are. Your brain wants you to know what's coming your way, even if you hate it. It's happy for you to hate everything, because your brain doesn't like to work. And growth and moving into a new phase is work, and your brain is lazy and it's thinking, please, can we not do that? So this is why people keep themselves small. My tough around it is you've got to, you have to do it. Otherwise, you will either end up in an early grave or you will end up broke. Yeah. And you will end up broke because what you'll do is you'll try to organize your life to be easier. You'll try to remove the stresses. And the first thing that's going to come up for you is, I can't afford to keep on paying these people when I still have to do everything for myself. Because I can't afford it is the most reflexive of all of our thought patterns. You know, it's the easiest one. It's the one that's most available to us. Yeah. So what you'll do is you'll self-sabotage your way into making your business smaller again.
This is so great. I'm going to use the word fascinating too, because I think you said like your brain is lazy, and I want people to hear you are not lazy. Like physically, you're doing too much. You're working too hard. The right thing, things are very difficult. You are certainly not lazy, but I hear what you are saying, Emily, that your brain is trying to keep you safe in some way.
Your brain doesn't want to do the work of being in a new space and thinking around new problems. Perfectly normal. Your brain wants to keep you safe. So you've got to say, thank you very much for trying to keep me safe. I appreciate it, but I'm going to allow myself to go through the discomfort of feeling all of these things, and I'm going to allow myself to be successful. And also recognize that as you become more successful, you think it's going to feel wonderful and you think it's going to feel easy, and it's not. It's going to feel difficult and painful and incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah. Know that that is the process working.
So every founder goes, right? Like including non-food founders, right? And so, I mean, recently there's the mantra's like, okay, I'm not afraid of this. I trust this. I trust.
Yes.
Everything is happening, right? And sometimes you literally ask for the thing you want, and the universe goes, okay, here you go, like very quickly. I used to think I was not able to like manifest anything. No, I can.
Yeah, you can.
And then I have to be ready to like do what you're describing here, is to do the work, right? And to trust that, like, okay, I asked for this. This is what I want. Now let's really step into it, right? To fully keep moving forward to what I say that I want. I have a very specific question for you, because if we've got a chef with everything in their brand, they have hired a team. And something I hear a lot is, yes, I know I need to do X, Y, Z to get my kitchen organized so that they can run on their own, but I don't have the time because we're too busy. What would you say to someone who said that to you?
I would say, well, you have to make the time, otherwise we're going to be in the same position in 6 months. So what I always say to people is, if you break your leg tomorrow, we have to close your business, because nobody else knows what to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to treat it like a project. So give yourself 2 weeks where perhaps you scale back on what you're doing. Almost stop. Yeah. And go through an R&D process. Give yourself 2 weeks. Yeah. And what you can do is standardize all of your recipes. Please start there. Please start with the standardized recipe process where you weigh everything out. Throw away every measuring cup that you have. Throw them away. Weigh everything out, measure it. I mean, we use grams. I know you do not use grams, and I'm very confused by ounces and all of those things.
Some kitchens use grams. The more data you have and the ability to drill down, literally the more like power you have, right?
And the more consistent you are. So when you are weighing things in grams, so when you are making sure that you are putting, let's make a chicken pie. All right. And what we're doing is we're making 40 chicken pies, all right? Big, nice ones that can go in the oven. So what we're doing is we're using 8 kilograms of onions, and we're using 8 kilograms of carrots, 6 kilograms of carrots, and we're using some celery, let's say 4 kilograms of celery and a couple of leeks, because that's what we're doing. When you know that you are adding those to the batch in the same quantity every single time, and you're adding the same amount of chicken, and you're adding the exact same amount of stock and cream, and you know that you are going to get 35 chicken pies out that all weigh the same amount. This is how factories do it. This is how the shops do it. They are not going, what should we do today? I think we should just add this. They're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is their customers are getting the exact same experience. You know that you can go into, say, Whole Foods, I don't know, and you can buy a salad and it's going to taste exactly the same way as it did the last 10 times that you had it.
Yeah.
It's not going to taste different because somebody forgot to order the leeks.
I'll go downstream from that a little bit, because one of the food costs for a food business is it's oftentimes the largest cost, right? Because we're investing a lot of money in that. The team cost can also, get pretty high depending on the type of business as well. But when you know what it takes to make 35 pot pies, and then you need to make 100 of them, you know exactly how much product you need to buy. And that's huge because it prevents under ordering and it prevents overspending. And I want to translate this into a CPG brand as well. I work with a woman who makes amazing nuts. And we've been talking a lot about how many pounds of the different types of nuts do we need? How many of the bags do we need? Her nuts come in 2 different sizes. And so if we know, and she does, we know exactly how many, bags of each size, we can purchase from one batch, right? If we have a sense of, here's what I believe we're going to sell over the next 3 months, I now understand not only how much I need to order and have on hand to produce my product to sell it, but I also know how many people do I need to work, and when do I need to start my production to have this all done on time. And it's all a trickle effect, right? And one piece links to the next.
It frees up your time, and it frees up your thinking. And I hear a lot from people. I hear a lot from founders. But I like being creative, or I feel like that's going to stifle my creativity. It isn't. Again, your brain is going to play tricks on you. It's actually going to free up your creativity, because what you're doing is you're keeping yourself so exhausted and tired and on the brink of burnout that you don't have time to think creatively. So what you're doing is you're constantly having to dig from this well of scarcity to try and seem creative. Whereas actually, if you standardized your stuff, so I use the phrase, make every decision once a lot. Please make and you can use it. Go ahead. Make every decision once. Make your decisions around your recipes once. Make your decisions around, like what things look like once for presentation and that type of thing. Don't change it according to how you feel. You don't decide whether or not to feed your cat based on whether or not it's raining. It's the same thing in your kitchen. Like, don't make decisions based on how you're feeling. Make them based on the strategy of the business, what you're trying to achieve. Look at the long-term plan. All right? Because your feelings are always going to be there. And after 5 years, you'll realize that you have no money and you've been making decisions on your feelings and you're still in the same place as you were when you started.
Yeah.
So like my advice is always standardize, make things easier for yourself, and you'll find that you become more invigorated. You'll find that your creativity starts coming back in a real way. You can start thinking strategically about your business and start making plans that are good for your business and not for what feels safe for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's sometimes easy to, even if you do carve out the time to do the work, something can pop up, or, we can keep ourselves busy. And so it takes active work and practice, right? Brain power to go, no, I'm going to sit here and make myself do this. I'm going to,
Yes.
I've been hearing a lot of things about like how, and I'm paraphrasing this pretty terribly, but like that thing you want the most is the most difficult to like sit down and do. There was this lovely thing I saw on social media, and I don't know the author's name, and I apologize, but he had like a jar of water, and it was casting a shadow. This big thing that you want in life, this thing that you desire most, is going to cast the biggest shadow. And I believe that. And it takes a lot of focus and discipline and energy to go, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to trudge through this shadow, because I know when I get to what I want, it's going to be beautiful. Right.
And there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes up for you. Let it come up. Work through it. Go and speak to a therapist, because everybody has a fear of being visible and of being seen.
Big one.
It's a big one. It's huge. So what they do is they hide, and they hire a social media manager who actually doesn't do any marketing but just posts pretty pictures. And because growing your business is a very scary process. There's a lot that's involved in it. Part of what's involved in it is that by growing and becoming more successful, you are going to be more visible and open to more criticism. It's just part of the thing. And everybody, it's an instinct. We want to be part of the crowd and part of the team. And there's all of this stuff that's involved. So let yourself go through the process.
Yeah.
I see. One of the questions that you were going to ask is, what's the most challenging thing founders encounter? And there's that. There's another thing I want to talk about as well, but it's really difficult, but because you have a lot of stuff you need to work through. Actually, the process is fairly simple. If you're finding it difficult, go and do the personal development work that you need to do to allow yourself to make the decisions to be bigger. That's what it is. It's tied to your personal development.
Yeah. I mean, this resonates for me, and there's a separate episode where we kind of talk about that a little bit. So I won't dive into it too much here, but I think every human being who is striving for something in their life is going to experience what we're talking about here, and we'll experience it in different parts of our lives, not just if you're a food founder, but I mean, name it, like could be relationships, could be money in general, could be work, like anything, could be stepping into being a leader. It's like, there are just so many places where it's like, okay, I want something different than what I have now. The journey is going to be challenging.
Yeah. I see it with my 3-year-old. Like he's going through it. And for him, it's the first time he's feeling any of these feelings. But he's going through this process of growing up. And, it's wonderful. It's honestly a blessing to be able to watch it. So this evening, before I came and joined this call, he was having some very big feelings, and he was very upset because I'd taken my fancy pen away from him and given him another pen because he wanted to write a shopping list. Because, you know, I shop with a shopping list because otherwise you forget what you're going to buy. Yeah. So he was pretending to write a shopping list, and I took this pen away from him, and he just went into he was distraught.
Yeah.
And after about 3 minutes, he stopped and he said, I was having big feelings. And I said, yes, you were, my love. And he says, so I said, where are you feeling them? And he says, in my eyes and in my mouth. I made a very big noise.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
It's so sweet, but just watching him work through it, and also knowing that the fact that he's feeling things is not bad.
Yeah, it will come to an end.
It will
be
come
like,
to an end.
It'll stop. I'll stop feeling that.
Yeah. And he doesn't need to have any judgment around it. I think we judge ourselves so much. And I see with the people I work with, they judge themselves so harshly for having things come up and having feelings around it and having, you know, an area that maybe they need to work on. Like, just be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
Notice it come up and go, okay, cool.
And I think that, you know, media plays a part in that too, you know, because the stories we hear about founders are, you know, like how, you know, they just made it through challenges. They were fearless, right? It's like, oh, it was easy for them. It was not easy for them. It wasn't easy for anybody. Just like an overnight success is never an actual overnight success. And I think talking about the hard things, talking about, you know, what your roadblock is, talking about that lesson that keeps coming up for you, like that's something that just happened for me recently. It's like, why am I in this place again? You know, and I scheduled a call and spoke to the person who helps me sort through that kind of thing. And I said, well, I've landed here again, and I can see the good things that are happening, and then this also feels very bad, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding and like learning a lesson from this, so I don't end up here again in this place, you know. So it's like we need to be talking about those things more.
We do. I mean, just on that experience, the reason why it keeps on coming up is because you haven't learned an effective way through it.
Exactly.
Once you've learned an effective way through it, it won't come up anymore. Right. It's not that the issue will stop happening, it's that you'll stop engaging with it, which, coming back to the kitchen, it's not that like everything is magically going to fall into place. No. It's that you're going to stop engaging with the part of you that needs everything to be chaotic.
Yeah. You mentioned that there was something else that you were going to mention that is a common struggle that you see food founders deal with.
Undercapitalizing. Honestly, like, we underestimate how much money you need in the beginning. I think that doesn't mean that you have to start with a huge amount of money. Perhaps you are a bootstrapper. I am a bootstrapper at heart, you know, like I love me some funding, but if I can do it myself, I'm going to. Yeah. What you can do is start small. You don't need to start with your end goal in mind. Yeah. Rather, pay good attention to how much it's actually going to cost you. Do some real sums and maths.
I was like, I know what you're going to say right now, and I'm here for it. Yeah.
Because it's going to save you a lot of heartache in the end. So many founders come to me. We do this. We do their sums, and I say, this is how much it's going to cost to run your business month on month, and they are shocked. And what too many people do is say, okay, well, let's cut back. Instead of thinking, well, how can we make our plan slightly smaller to make it work? And honestly, like, don't commit to a space or to a run or to a production schedule or anything. Don't commit to a menu. If you have a catering company, do not until you have run your numbers.
Yeah. I completely agree with this. And going back to something we were talking about earlier is, that first year of business, we're now talking about that, like getting ready to launch, knowing what your proposed products cost to make, right? You've done the recipe development, you understand, okay, this is the recipe that I want to create. And maybe you built that with retail products, right? So those aren't your true like retail costs. So go to the distributor or whomever you're going to buy from, the farmer, whoever it might be, understand the real cost of what your ingredients and your packaging are going to be. And for me, I work primarily with CPG brands, but also with meal delivery and caterers. Understand your margin, understand the true gross profit of that product. As you're saying, understand what is it going to cost me to pay the rent, pay the utilities, have the operating softwares that I'm going to need. And having an understanding of that from the beginning, just as you said, and I totally agree with this, you don't necessarily have to have all of the capital up front, but you need to know financially, what are you signing up for? What are you getting yourself into? Will you need to, utilize debt, right? Whether it's a credit card or a loan or something to keep the business going. Will you need to find outside funding? And how much will that be? These are things that you can see prior to launching the business. We have recorded now for well over an hour.
I
and
know.
I'm only ending this because I have to record another podcast episode this afternoon. But I'm happy to say that, Emily, you're going to be joining us inside the Good Food CFO community, right? To continue this conversation. Amazing.
I am.
Yeah, we'll have a date that we'll announce. And I think digging into really the mindset conversation that we were talking about. And I think, it's not something we've talked about here on the podcast before, but the challenges of growth, the challenges of getting what you desire, right? Creating that. I think that there's so much great work that can be done around that, and such great conversation that I'm really, really excited to have our Good Food CFO Plus members here, to talk with you. So
I can't wait. I've loved this, Sarah.
Same.
Thank you.
I don't want to go.
I don't want to go either.
I think it's probably late where you are, right? What time is it?
It is 9:30 at night.
Oh gosh.
I'm going to
go to bed. No.
I heard my baby wake up, but my husband, she's with my husband.
Okay. Well, thank you for spending extra time with me today.
Anytime. For you, anytime. It's been lovely. I'm such a huge fan. You're doing amazing work. I think it's wonderful.
Exactly the same way about you. Before you go, though, tell folks where they can find Kitchen Think and Food Biz School, and where they can connect and see a lot of the great content that you're sharing as well.
So we have TikTok and Instagram for both of them. The Kitchen Think is at the.kitchen.think, THINK. And Food Biz School is food.biz.school. We are on Facebook and we are on LinkedIn, but if you want to see the up-to-date, day-to-day stuff, find us on Instagram and TikTok.
So wonderful to see you and talk with you. I'm going to let you go take
your
baby and spend some time with your husband. And we'll see you in the not too distant future inside the community.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.
You can hear the rest of Sarah's conversation with Emily as a Plus member inside the Good Food CFO community. As a Plus member, you'll get access to full-length episodes, exclusive podcast bonus content, live events like Q&As with podcast guests, and even attend live podcast recordings. And if you'd like to connect with Emily, be sure to join us for a live Q&A on Tuesday, January 9th. For more information, visit thegoodfoodcfo.com/join.
Thank you for joining us here today. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful or inspiring in any way, please share it with your founder friends on social and rate and review the podcast wherever you listen. It's the #1 way to help good food founders find the show. We'll be back with a brand new episode next week.